1970, in this entire country, there were 65,000 black-white married couples. That's all. In 1967, the Supreme Court finally ruled that interracial marriages throughout the United States were legal. There are places, I know Chicago is a whole different place, but there are places still in this country where black-white couples are not really safe. In 2005, there were 422,000 black-white couples. It was a very, very different scene in the 60s. A poem in a very different mood from Things of the Weather. You all know what a gibbous moon is? When the moon, when it's almost full, not quite full. And a waxing gibbous moon is the moon when it's just moving toward fullness, about to be completely full. And this is kind of a love poem to my husband now. Waxing gibbous moon. This humped asymmetry, as if the scissors slipped, a segment missing in the arc. We're waiting for the song's last notes to be resolved. Yet here beside me, your face in profile is still your face, the whole of it, which I can never grasp, even between my hands, all at once. Two more poems, one from Nothing Between Us and one new one, if that's okay if I read just a couple more. Is that okay? This is, I've taught for a long, long time. I've taught for 44 years. And I find that I have learned far more from my students than they've ever learned from me. And this is a poem in Nothing Between Us that I think talks about that. It's called Remedial Reading. The smallest classroom in the 9th grade school. Yellow walls, and the ceiling seemed too high. Boxes lined up in bright colors on the tables, each a different level. This class for retards, this a Toonie class. The kids swaggered and straggled through the door, unwilling to be seen here. Laminated cards, one at a time. 2nd, 3rd grade skills for 14-year-olds. Mostly boys. I'd been assigned to help the reading teacher, her thick gray hair bunched and slipping along with hairpins and combs. Ruth organized field trips, took her own beat-up station wagon. Once she drove us up the coast to the great blue heron's nesting grounds. We walked up and up until we could look straight down into the tops of the big trees. She showed us how to spot the saucers of nests resting in the branches. I never got the kids to move beyond a level or two. Nobody stayed on task. Once I was pronouncing vowels with Lester Sims, light-skinned, freckled, a skinny little dude. O, okra, Oakland, Coke. And O, butter, supper, dove. His eyes shone. He was standing beside me. Doves, he said? We can talk about birds? Sure, I said, and told him about the finches I was raising at home in as big a cage as I could afford. Man, why didn't you say you wanted us to talk about birds? And he was out the door. Before the bell rang for the next class, he was back. I was putting cards away in their boxes, red-tipped ones in the red box, brown and brown, folding the lids closed. You like pigeons? He grinned. I do, I said. He unzipped his jacket. I don't know how many wings flapped out from him, ruffled my hair, and fluttered all through that yellow room, a sound only feathers can make, as Lester told me every one of their names. Again, thank you so much. It's great being with you guys tonight. And I don't know whether you do this, Janet, but if anybody has questions, I'm sure glad to answer anything that people want. This is a new poem. As I said, I've been teaching for 44, count them, years. And this is a poem that has to do not with how much I love teaching, and I probably love it more now than I ever have, but I hate telling people I teach English. And that's the title of this poem. I hate telling people I teach English. Like last August, after they'd finished my bone scan, this combed-over mid-60s guy starts chatting about the novel he's written in his head. He only needs someone like me to work it up. He never liked punctuation, parts of speech, all that junk from junior high, and I couldn't get my printout fast enough to take to my GP, who likes to quote from his inspirational speeches to local luncheon clubs. He's determined to collect them in a book, though he'd need a good editor. Do I know any? And meanwhile, I've been waiting 57 minutes for help with recharging my sluggish thyroid, and I haven't met any doctors who like giving free advice about your daughter's milk allergy, or your friend's migraines, or the thumb you slammed in the stairwell door, splitting it open so badly your students interrupted your lecture on pronoun agreement to note you were dripping blood from your hand, and wow, what happened? But it's mostly at parties, I hate admitting, I teach English. I've never been quick enough to fudge, the way a Methodist minister friend says he's in support services, so he doesn't get called to lead grace. I guess I could dub myself a communications facilitator, but since I'm in the business of trying to obviate obfuscation, I own up, though I dread what I know is coming. Oh, they say I hated English, all that grammar, you wouldn't like the way I talk, you'd be correcting me, and suddenly they need another bud or merlot, or they've got to check out the meatballs or guacamole over on the table, and I'm left facing blank space, no one who can even think about correcting my dangling participles. Once, when the computer guy was at the house, bent over my laptop trying to get us back online, he asked what it was I wrote, and when I told him poetry, said, "Ah, fluffy stuff." And I wasn't sure whether he was kidding or not, but I figured at least it was better than saying he hated poetry and that he had a manuscript right outside in his Camry, and could I take a look? No hurry, but he knew it would sell. Could I tell him how to get an agent for his novel about his uncle moving to Arizona and running a thriving ostrich farm until the day hot air balloons took off a half-mile away and stampeded the birds, till all he was left with were feathers and bloody tangled necks on fence posts. The dream of making $2 million from those birds, a haunting sentence fragment. But then, I think, I would never have wanted to miss the time a dentist, tapping my molars, asked if I'd like to hear him recite Chaucer's prologue to the Canterbury Tales in Middle English, which he did while I lay back in his chair, open-mouthed, pierced to the root.
In just a few days, but does anybody have any questions for this lady about
seriously, if you want to ask me.
May as well, she made that offer.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. All right, so for two future English teachers.
Oh, yes.
For sure that was hilarious. What would be like the one piece of advice for us that you think is indispensable?
Oh my gosh.
And it can be like poetry related
a
to
sense of humor.
Yeah.